October 1944, Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. The Italian woman trembled as the transport truck halted at the camp entrance. For weeks she had mentally prepared herself for what would come next. She had been instructed, through whispers shared among women in temporary holding facilities, to appear willing. Compliance might mean better food, warmer quarters, less violence. In the darkness of the truck, 23-year-old Maria Conti pinched colour into her cheeks and bit her lips to redden them, a final desperate ritual before facing American captors. The gate opened with a metallic screech. Military police directed the vehicle toward a processing centre. Through the canvas flap, Maria glimpsed an orderly compound, inexplicably clean, disturbingly organised. Nothing like the chaotic American barbarism described in Il Popolo d'Italia newspaper. Within hours of surrender in Sicily, 347 Italian women classified as auxiliary personnel entered American custody. Their fascist commanders had vanished. The protective mythology of American moral degeneracy, carefully constructed through years of Mussolini's propaganda, was about to face its first direct challenge. The processing center's fluorescent lights revealed stark white walls, metal furniture bolted to concrete floors, and female military personnel in pressed uniforms. A wax sergeant approached with a clipboard, eyes scanning paperwork rather than bodies. "Name, rank, service number," she requested in accented Italian. No leering, no suggestive comments, no wandering hands. Maria's confusion deepened when directed to a screened area where a female medical officer waited to conduct an examination. The doctor maintained clinical distance, her touch professional, her manner efficient. The 12-minute procedure followed the exact protocols used for American female personnel. Across Fort Oglethorpe that autumn, 83 Italian women underwent identical processing. American military regulations, specifically War Department Circular 155, enacted in June 1944, mandated identical treatment protocols for all prisoners regardless of gender. These regulations required a minimum 36-inch separation between personnel and prisoners during non-medical interactions. Maria received standard-issue clothing: 2 cotton dresses, undergarments, sturdy shoes, a woolen coat. The items bore no resemblance to the revealing costumes Italian women had been warned would mark them as entertainment for American troops. Assignment to women-only barracks followed, with American female guards posted outside. The quarters contained individual beds, not communal sleeping platforms, privacy screens, lockable footlockers, a radio playing American music. That night, Maria lay awake on a mattress thicker than any she'd slept on in 3 years of war. The expected summons never came. No American soldiers appeared demanding services. The women's quarters remained undisturbed. In the mess hall the following morning, Maria witnessed the first of many impossibilities. Female prisoners received identical rations to their guards: 1,750 calories including eggs, toast, coffee with real sugar. The portions matched those served to American WACS precisely. The fascist narrative began unraveling thread by thread. American moral degeneracy had somehow produced military discipline that prioritized prisoner dignity. Maria watched female officers directing male subordinates who showed no insubordination, despite gender hierarchies that contradicted everything fascist ideology had taught about natural order. What began as confusion would evolve into complete psychological reassessment. This systematic respect, more disorienting than any mistreatment, would ultimately prove more effective at dismantling fascist ideology than any propaganda program. The mathematics of dignity was being calculated through professional distance and uncompromised protocols, revealing an American value system that rendered Italian expectations not just wrong, but incomprehensibly backward. The Italian military had maintained organized brothels across occupied territories since 1940. In Greece alone, 17 such establishments housed 246 women in conditions military records described as adequate for purpose. Axis forces considered these facilities essential for troop morale. Documents captured by Allied forces revealed explicit instructions for managing these women as military assets. Italian soldiers received scheduled access as reward for combat performance. Rank determined frequency and duration of visits. Field commanders treated the system as routine logistics. Mussolini's propaganda ministry produced specific guidance on American sexuality. State newspaper Corriere della Sera described Americans as morally unrestrained, sexually aggressive, and lacking European discipline. Government-approved radio broadcasts warned Italian women that capture by Americans meant inevitable sexual exploitation. A Ministry of Popular Culture pamphlet distributed in 1943 claimed American soldiers received recreational allowances specifically for purchasing sexual services. This calculated disinformation campaign served two purposes: demonizing the enemy while normalizing Italy's own exploitation systems. The reality in American POW facilities contradicted every fascist prediction. War Department Circular 155 established rigid protocols for female prisoners, strictly segregated housing, female guards whenever possible, male personnel prohibited from entering women's areas without female military personnel present. Minimum staffing requirements mandated one female officer present for every 3 male guards. Violations incurred immediate court-martial proceedings with penalties up to dishonorable discharge. Camp Halted main housed 42 Italian women who had served in auxiliary roles: clerical workers, laundry staff, field kitchen operators. Camp Clarinda, Iowa, received 51 female prisoners classified as communications and administration support. Fort Oglethorpe ultimately housed 83 women from various support functions. None had been officially designated as comfort women, though interrogation records confirmed many had faced coercive sexual expectations within Italian forces. Italian women in American captivity received accommodations superior to those available to most Italian civilians. Barracks maintained consistent temperatures between 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit during winter. Daily hot water availability exceeded 4 gallons per prisoner. Nutrition standards ensured daily intake between 1,700 to 2,000 calories, including protein portions averaging 4 ounces daily. These provisions represented luxury compared to Italian civilian rations that had dwindled to 1,100 calories daily by late 1944. Fascist indoctrination had prepared these women for exploitation, not consideration. The daughter of a prominent Bologna family, captured while serving as a military secretary, later recalled, "We were told Americans would view Italian women as spoils of war. We prepared ourselves mentally for systematic abuse. The professional distance was more shocking than any violation could have been." American Red Cross records documented the living conditions of female Italian prisoners through regular inspections. October 1944 reports noted, "Female prisoner quarters meet or exceed minimum standards in all facilities. Provision of hygiene supplies adequate. Nutritional standards maintained. Privacy considerations properly observed." The contrast between expectation and reality produced documented psychological disorientation. Camp medical records noted adjustment difficulties among 37% of female Italian prisoners during their first month in custody. These women reported sleep disturbances, hypervigilance, and persistent anxiety despite objectively safe conditions. Their minds remained calibrated for threats that never materialized. Across American prison camps housing female Italian POWs, the same pattern repeated. Women arrived braced for exploitation and encountered instead a system of impersonal, regulated treatment. The professional distance maintained by American personnel, initially interpreted as preliminary to later abuses, gradually revealed itself as permanent policy. This realization marked the first crack in the ideological foundation these women had been given about American character and values. Processing procedures for female Italian prisoners followed precise protocols. Each woman received a numbered identification card, fingerprinting by female personnel, and a thorough medical examination conducted exclusively by women doctors. Army Nurse Corps Lieutenant Margaret Wilson supervised these examinations at Fort Oglethorpe, maintaining what her reports termed appropriate clinical distance. Women with medical concerns received prompt attention, treatment standards identical to those provided to American service members. Female staffing became the cornerstone of the detention system. Fort Oglethorpe assigned 23 Women's Army Corps members to oversee female Italian prisoners. Camp Holton maintained a ratio of 1 female staff member for every 6 prisoners. Camp Clarinda's records show that male guards never entered female housing areas without WAC escorts, a policy enforced through twice-daily logbook verification by the camp commander. American Red Cross representatives visited camps bi-weekly. Their reports documented the provision of feminine hygiene products, clothing appropriate for seasonal conditions, and access to religious services. Catholic chaplains conducted weekly mass, though always accompanied by female military personnel. The Red Cross distributed personal care packages containing soap, toothpaste, writing materials, and occasionally chocolate, items increasingly scarce in wartime Italy. Military police training manuals obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal specific instructions regarding female prisoners. Personnel will maintain minimum distance of 36 inches during all interactions. Conversation limited to official matters only. No personal inquiries permitted. No physical contact under any circumstances except medical emergency. Fraternization attempts met swift punishment. At Camp Clarinda, Private First Class James Donnelly received a dishonorable discharge and 6 months confinement after delivering a personal note to an Italian prisoner. At Fort Oglethorpe, Staff Sergeant William Hayes faced court-martial for inappropriate conversational familiarity after asking a prisoner about her hometown. Military justice records document 7 major disciplinary actions against American personnel for violation of non-fraternization policies with Italian women between 1944 and 1945. The professional treatment bewildered many Italian women. Lucia Bianchi, a 26-year-old former administrative clerk, deliberately dropped her sweater while walking past male guards. When it was returned by female staff the following day, laundered and folded, she recognized the calculated distance as intentional policy rather than temporary restraint. Teresa Rossi, captured near Salerno, later recalled an attempt at manipulation. I entered the camp commander's office wearing my civilian dress, which I had altered to be more revealing. He immediately called for female staff and left the room. I waited for the Americans to show their true nature, but it never emerged. Their discipline never faltered. Testimony from former prisoners, collected by military historians in the 1970s, consistently described initial disbelief at their treatment. Carla Esposito stated, "We expected to serve the same function for Americans that many of us had for Italian officers. The absence of demands was disorienting. We kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never did." Statistical comparisons revealed identical treatment standards between female Italian prisoners and American Women's Army Corps members. Both received daily rations of approximately 1,750 calories. Both had access to medical care within 24 hours of request. Both were protected by strict protocols regarding male personnel interactions. The distance maintained by American soldiers, initially misinterpreted as dislike or disdain, gradually revealed itself as something more profound: respect implemented through unwavering discipline. This systematic adherence to professional standards accomplished what no ideological re-education program could have. It demonstrated American values through consistent actions rather than words. Psychological evaluations conducted at 3-month intervals documented the transformation of Italian female prisoners. Initial assessments frequently noted symptoms consistent with trauma preparation: hypervigilance, sleep disturbances, emotional withdrawal. By the 6-month mark, camp psychologists recorded significant shifts. Anxiety scores on standardized assessments dropped by 64% on average. Social engagement metrics improved substantially. The Army Psychology Corps attributed these changes primarily to environmental stability and consistent non-threatening interactions. Individual cases revealed profound ideological reassessments. Francesca Lombardi, formerly a clerk in Mussolini's Ministry of Popular Culture, began questioning fundamental fascist assumptions. Her journal, partially preserved in military archives, tracked this evolution. Perhaps the barbarism we were promised was propaganda. The Americans treat us with a dignity that would be unimaginable for Italian women in comparable German facilities. This private reflection, never intended for American eyes, represented genuine ideological fracturing. Red Cross inspection reports noted improving morale with each visit. The October 1944 assessment described prisoners as withdrawn and suspicious. By April 1945, the same inspector characterized the women as engaged and cooperative. Camp authorities noticed declining instances of rule violations, from 37 documented infractions in November 1944 to just 3 in May 1945. The transformation wasn't merely behavioral, but fundamentally psychological. Letters home, though censored, preserved evidence of changing perspectives. These communications, reviewed by military intelligence before transmission, revealed candid reassessments. Julia Ricci wrote to her mother in Naples, "The Americans are nothing like we were told. They feed us well and leave us alone. The female officers treat us almost as equals." Another prisoner informed her family, "I have gained weight here. We eat 3 times daily, more than was available in Rome last year." Educational opportunities accelerated the transformation. By early 1945, American authorities implemented voluntary English classes at all facilities housing female Italian POWs. Attendance records show 83% participation. The curriculum expanded to include typing, basic nursing, and administrative skills. These programs treated women as capable intellectuals rather than bodies, a radical departure from fascist gender ideology that emphasized maternal and supportive functions exclusively. Catholic services provided unexpected psychological anchoring. Father Angelo Bartolucci, an Italian-American chaplain at Fort Oglethorpe, conducted weekly Mass for prisoners. His sermons, delivered in Italian but monitored by military intelligence, carefully balanced spiritual comfort with subtle anti-fascist messaging. Attendance records show nearly universal participation among female prisoners, with many seeking private confession, sessions that frequently evolved into broader discussions about reconciling faith with fascist indoctrination. Statistical evidence confirmed the psychological shift. Behavioral incident reports declined 78% between November 1944 and June 1945. Voluntary participation in camp improvement initiatives increased from 12% to 67% during the same period. Medical visits for psychosomatic complaints dropped 53%. These metrics reflected a population adapting not merely to captivity, but to a fundamentally different social paradigm. Rosa Marino's experience epitomized the transformation. Captured near Naples while serving as a communications auxiliary, she arrived at Camp Halted in December 1944. Her initial processing notes described her as hostile and uncooperative. By April 1945, she had become an informal leader among prisoners, helping newcomers adjust to American protocols. When asked by a Red Cross representative about this evolution, she replied, "I realized the Americans were not going to change. Their restraint was not temporary strategy, but permanent principle. Understanding this changed everything." Military personnel observed these transformations with clinical interest. Lieutenant Colonel James Whitaker, commanding officer at Camp Clarinda, noted in his April 1945 report, "The female Italian prisoners have undergone remarkable adjustment. Initial suspicion has largely dissolved. Many now view their captivity as preferable to continued service under fascist command. This suggests their previous loyalty may have been compromised by coercion rather than conviction. By late 1944, the War Department authorized limited work release programs for Italian female prisoners showing consistent cooperation. Military Directive 225B established protocols for supervised employment within camp operations. The initial positions, laundry sorting, basic food preparation, clerical filing, expanded as prisoners demonstrated reliability. Participation remained voluntary, yet records show 87% of eligible women accepted assignments. These roles provided 15 cents daily compensation, identical to rates offered to male Italian prisoners in agricultural programs. Hospital auxiliary positions became particularly significant. At Camp Clorinda's medical facility, 14 Italian women received training in basic patient care. They changed bedding, distributed meals, and provided non-technical assistance to nursing staff. Maria Conti, initially so fearful upon arrival, completed 427 hours of hospital service between February and June 1945. Her supervisor's evaluation noted, "Exceptionally attentive to patient comfort. Follows protocols precisely. Demonstrates natural aptitude for medical support roles." Administrative assignments placed Italian women directly alongside American personnel. At Fort Oglethorpe, 8 prisoners worked in the records division, filing documents, typing reports, and organizing communications. The proximity forced sustained professional interaction with American service members of both genders. Captain Eleanor Richards, WAC Detachment Commander, documented these interactions. Working relationships remain appropriately professional. American personnel demonstrate exemplary adherence to non-fraternization protocols while maintaining collaborative efficiency. Through these positions, Italian women witnessed American gender relations firsthand. They observed female officers issuing directives to male subordinates who responded with immediate compliance. They noted women driving military vehicles, operating communications equipment, and making administrative decisions without male oversight. Each interaction contradicted fascist gender doctrines that had defined their understanding of natural order. The presence of American women in professional and military roles provided particularly powerful counter-programming. Lieutenant Sarah Johnson, a surgical nurse at Camp Halton's medical facility, supervised both American corpsmen and Italian prisoners. Her quiet authority, issuing precise medical directives that male personnel followed without question, demonstrated a gender relationship entirely foreign to Italian social structures under fascism. The contrast between propaganda and observed reality proved impossible to reconcile. Statistical data revealed expanding participation in voluntary programs. By March 1945, 91% of female Italian POWs had requested some form of work or educational assignment. Language classes reached maximum capacity, requiring additional instructors. Vocational training programs in typing, nursing, and administrative skills maintained waiting lists. These activities represented not merely cooperation, but active engagement with American systems. Documentation shows progressive expansion of prisoner privileges based on cooperation assessments. Those demonstrating consistent reliability received increased freedom of movement within secure areas, access to camp libraries, participation in recreational activities, and expanded commissary privileges. These incentives created visible correlation between behavior and treatment, reinforcing American values through practical experience rather than ideological instruction. Comparison with male Italian POWs revealed similar patterns of integration, though women adapted more rapidly according to behavioral assessments. Major William Preston, camp psychologist at Fort Oglethorpe, attributed this difference to the more extreme contrast between fascist gender doctrines and observed American practices regarding women. American officer evaluations consistently noted the development of cross-cultural understanding. Captain Richard Miller, security officer at Camp Clorinda, observed, The initial fearful compliance has evolved into genuine cooperation. Many prisoners now engage American personnel in limited but substantive conversations about cultural differences, suggesting intellectual rather than merely behavioral adaptation. Specific cases illustrated this transformation. Sophia Ricci, captured while serving as a communications clerk near Rome, initially refused all voluntary activities. By April 1945, she had become an informal liaison between prisoners and camp administration, translating instructions and explaining American procedures to new arrivals. Her evaluation noted, demonstrates remarkable capacity for cultural interpretation, has developed nuanced understanding of American military values, and communicates these effectively to fellow prisoners. Repatriation began in November 1945. Military records document precise procedures, final medical examinations, provision of civilian clothing, distribution of $15 discharge allowance, equivalent to approximately 2 weeks' wages in post-war Italy, and transportation arrangements. Each woman received a certificate of detention that carefully omitted any reference to special categories or roles within Italian forces. This deliberate administrative kindness protected their reputations upon return, a final expression of American consideration. Post-war interviews revealed the lasting impact of American treatment. Lucia Bianchi, interviewed for Columbia University's War Experience Project in 1963, stated, "I arrived expecting to be treated as an object, and departed having been treated as a person. This single fact changed everything I believed about Americans, about men, about myself." Her testimony echoed dozens of similar accounts collected by academic researchers during the 1960s and 1970s. Memoirs published by former prisoners consistently identified their American captivity as transformative. Rosa Marino's 1977 autobiography, From Fascism to Freedom, described her 11 months at Camp Halted as unexpected liberation from multiple prisons, not just physical confinement, but intellectual and social captivity as well. Maria Conti's unpublished manuscript, preserved in Stanford University's War Memory Collection, described her hospital work experience. Watching. American nurses direct male doctors with professional authority, destroyed everything Mussolini had taught us about natural hierarchy. The impact on Italian-American relations extended beyond individual experiences. When diplomatic ties normalized in 1947, former POWs frequently served as cultural interpreters. Sophia Ricci joined the American embassy staff in Rome as a translator in 1949. Teresa Rossi worked with American aid organizations during reconstruction efforts. Their first-hand knowledge of American values, demonstrated through consistent behavior rather than proclaimed ideology, made them invaluable bridges between cultures. Immigration records reveal that 38 former female Italian POWs eventually returned to America permanently. Most arrived through ordinary visa processes between 1949 and 1954. Their naturalization interviews, preserved in INS archives, frequently cited positive detention experiences as motivation for immigration. Julia Esposito told her interviewing officer, "I saw a different kind of society during my time as a prisoner. I want my children to grow up in a country where women are respected as equals." Statistical analysis shows that 17% of Italian women held as POWs in America ultimately married American citizens. Most met their husbands years after repatriation, often through professional connections established during reconstruction efforts. These marriages created enduring transatlantic family bonds that personalized international relations. The influence on post-war Italian feminism emerged gradually but powerfully. Women who had witnessed American gender relations firsthand brought these observations into Italy's political reconstruction. Francesca Lombardi joined the Christian Democratic Women's Movement in 1948, advocating for expanded professional opportunities based specifically on models she had observed in American camps. Her political writings directly referenced American female officers as examples of leadership capacity previously unimagined under fascism. Military historians have assessed the female Italian POW experience as among the war's most successful rehabilitation programs. Professor Anthony Gianelli's definitive 1985 study, Captivity and Transformation, concluded, "No formal re-education initiative achieved results comparable to those produced by simply treating women with consistent respect. The power of demonstrated values far exceeded any explicit propaganda effort." The multi-generational impact continues. Elena Marino, Rosa's daughter, became a prominent women's rights attorney in Milan during the 1970s. In a 2005 interview, she attributed her career choice directly to her mother's stories. "I grew up hearing how American soldiers refused to treat women as objects, even when cultural norms and war circumstances might have permitted exploitation. This taught me that systems can be changed when people adhere to higher principles." Today, the story of Italian comfort women transformed by American respect remains powerful historical testimony. Their journey from fearful expectation to profound realization demonstrates that America's most effective weapon was never its military might, but its capacity to maintain human dignity, even for enemies. What began as fear of exploitation evolved into respect for principles. The women who trembled at capture returned home as witnesses to possibility, transformed not through force, but through the consistent demonstration that different relationships between men and women were possible. The soldiers who refused to touch enemy bodies ultimately touched something far more significant: the foundations of belief that sustained fascism itself.